The Descendants have less mileage for me.
No, it's Milo.
I'm saying Milo-age. It's a play on how they have the age.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod, the game where no one wins and the lucky numbers are always 666. I'm your co-host, Disgustin Ghoulsley.
Are we doing Halloween names?
Why not?
On Twitter, I am currently Shasta Frankenstein. That probably needs more explanation than...
I did not plan a great Halloween name for myself. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I just threw it in there.
Yeah, and Lagore. I don't.
Oh, it's good. It's good. I like it.
Yes, this week we have returning guests Anne Lepore from our previous episode. You talked about psychedelic furs and teen idols, right?
Yes, and I have to say, a lot of people messaged me and thanked me for talking about the psychedelic furs and getting them to look at that album that they had never listened to before, and they love it. Everyone loves it.
That's awesome. That's one of our best episodes. Like it's done really well as far as listens, and it was a really fun one to do. And we were like, well, we should definitely have Anne back.
Yay!
And for these, I guess I could introduce the month that we're doing. So we're a little bit of a jumble right now. We are continuing our Halloween Spooktacular, where we only discuss horror punk, psychobilly, death rock, and goth rock. And part of the people we've invited to come be guest hosts on the Halloween episodes are people that we've actually talked to in the past. So we didn't want to throw a new person in on a gimmick episode. And two, it's like it's always just fun to like have people that you have like a good rapport with back. So if you, I guess that means if you don't get invited back, you didn't have a great rapport. Before we get too deep, why don't you tell everybody about the Machine Shop?
Sure. The Machine Shop is my business. It's a website, and I sell original T-shirts. I sell records, CDs. I sell art for lots of different bands, musicians, stuff of my own, all kinds of different stuff. And it's the machineshoprocks.com, and it's really fun. And I vend at a lot of punk rock flea markets in the Philadelphia area. If you're ever around there, look for me.
Yeah, awesome. And you sell a ton of groovy or Cappy merchandise on your site as well, which is like fits perfectly with our theme for this.
It does. That's true.
This month. So this is the show where we use a number generator and the Rate Your Music Punk charts to choose one album and one EP at random to discuss. This month we've modified it slightly, as I said before, to only include horror punk, psychobilly, and death rock, goth rock included. But and normally at the beginning we talk about the specific year our albums came from. And for last week's episode, we didn't do that because we didn't have the same year for both of the records. But somehow we wound up choosing two records that were released in 1985 for this episode.
It's a dead man's
Also, the EP we discussed last week came out in 85. So I don't know how we did that. That wasn't planned.
85 was a big year for gothy, horror-ish music, I guess.
So, yeah, for spooky music, was real popular in 85. So I guess we could take advantage of the fact that we have a single year to talk about and talk about 1985. So looking at the Rate Your Music charts for 85, we'll look specifically, we'll look at the overall punk charts for the 85, and then we'll look a little deeper once we get into the albums for the specific genres. Okay, so number one on my chart, I don't know about which chart you have pulled up, Ann, but I've got Husker Du's New Day Rising.
That's what I have.
And that is pretty funny considering I went and saw Bob Mould last night. So it's a pretty funny coincidence. I'm trying to think of which Husker Du album is my favorite. It might be this one. It might be Zen Arcade. I always bounce back and forth between the two. But this one does feature some really big songs like I Apologize and Celebrated Summer, and both songs that he played last night, which was incredible.
And the whole show was really great, I assume?
Yeah, the whole show was amazing. He played for like an hour and a half. It was he played solo, because normally he has a backing band. John Worster and Jason Narducci from Superchunk tend to play with him live, but this was like a solo plugged in show. So his opener played acoustic, but he played full electric, and he played for so many songs. It was like 25 songs or something like that across like his entire discography. So like there were like 8 Husker Du songs, 2 Sugar songs, and then like a ton of his solo records songs, and it was a lot of fun. He even seemed to be having a lot of fun, and even said that at one point that this is one of the most fun shows he's done in years. And it didn't come across as one of those like, oh, you're the best town, Cleveland, that type of, what's up, Springfield?
Looks down at the paper on the floor to see where he is.
He seemed genuinely surprised by how much fun he was having playing these songs. So I don't know if it was the atmosphere of the room or the type of the stage they were on, because it was a smaller, intimate thing where everyone was seated, and it was a sold-out show. And so I don't know if it was that or if it was just, having a blast playing these songs, but he was great.
It's awesome. He's really great. He doesn't really, there's nothing bad. Like, some stuff's better than other stuff, but overall, like, he's really solid throughout everything he's done.
Yeah. His newest record is like one of his best. I
love the last couple of albums are all really, really great.
Yeah. Back to the charts. I don't know if it's the same on yours, but I've got number 2, The Fall, This Nation's Saving Grace.
I'd like to discuss The Fall for just a moment.
Yes, please.
I don't think you guys were wowed by The Fall like I thought you were going to be when I made that playlist. I was like, I spent all this time. I made a Spotify playlist. I carefully crafted it with all my favorite stuff. And you guys were like, I like the 2 songs. And I was like, oh, no, I'm crushed. Not really, but I think it's just, they're just so really not for everyone.
I wanted to say, whenever I see The Fall show up on charts now, I'm a lot more excited, because I actually I feel like I have a better grasp of them as a band and like what they sound like and kind of their whole attitude. So I definitely wanted to say thank you for making that playlist and sharing that with us, because it was very informative. So now, like, when I see them in their place in punk history, like it makes sense. And they're one of those big bands that was just a big gap in my knowledge for a long time. So
even though I didn't like bowl you over with like excitement of their music, at least I did some teaching.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely used to, when I would see their name on these lists, I would kind of like roll my eyes and go, oh, there's The Fall again. They had an album, so they're always on the charts. And
they're always on the charts.
They've never stopped making records, so there's so many of them. But I was even listening to that playlist again today, and I was like, I clearly did not give them the chance that they deserved previously. So I definitely appreciate that playlist.
Cool.
Is this record in particular one that you know very well?
I mean, I know practically everything pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have an entire shelf of records that's just theirs. So yeah, this is the one that is like, the one that people talk about, like, oh my gosh, this is their best album. This if you look up best full albums or full ranked, this is almost always going to be the number one ranked album on any person's chart. It's impossible for me to like make a ranking personally because I really love them so much. This is not my number one, definitely not, but I'm always different from everyone else. This is the number one for like people who really like carefully think about like lots of specific pieces of the puzzle. And I guess this ticks every box for those critics and the time it was out and what it was doing and what it was saying, so I think it's great. I love it like everything else, but I think I like them a little bit more like shambling. So this one is almost a step toward like regular people might like this, or people who like people who like all those people who like talk about like Pavement sounds like the Fall, and I'm like, really? This is the album they're probably talking about when they say that.
This is their highest rated on Rate Your Music. Just behind that is Hex Induction Hour, and those two records are like have both the highest number of ratings and like the highest scores. So like 3.88 and 3.86. So yeah, this is definitely the popular fall album.
Yeah. I think for my playlist, my playlist, I told you guys, could have been 25,000 more songs. Based on my playlist, if you use that as a tool to what my favorite album is, it's Grotesque.
Yeah,
okay,
I can see that.
So you prefer the earlier stuff for the most part?
Not even just the earlier. Like I said, it's so hard to talk about them because I love lots of later stuff, tons of later stuff. Imperial Wax Solvent, Ballheads Roll, Cerebral Caustic. This is sort of a middle time when, like, if you want to call them post-punk, this is where they're most post-punky.
Yeah.
But the earlier stuff, has a little bit more punk, and the later stuff I think sort of kind of comes back to that again and is the
way you talk about the Fall has made me determined to actually become a Fall fan. So I'm going to try and crack this, like, whatever it takes to make me a Fall fan. I'm going to figure it out because they're so highly rated all the time. You genuinely love them. The little bit I've on the playlist that I've heard, I really enjoyed. So I need to figure out what this is. Like, I have to make this work for me. So
what your foothold is.
Yeah.
Full sense of it.
Like maybe you use Grotesque as the jumping off and try to and live in the Dragnet Witch Trials Grotesque zone. Maybe is for me where like I was hooked on them from songs that someone made me, like, put the tape together for me that had a lot of that stuff on it. And I still have that tape. And I actually still have a tape player, and I actually listen to that tape sometimes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm definitely I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to make this work. So, continuing on the list, number 3 is The Cure's The Head on the Door. Where is this in the Cure discography?
This is right before Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me.
So this is Pop Cure? Are we there yet?
There. I have listened to this one not too long ago, but I don't remember. I haven't really, like, I have a lot of blind spots for Cure songs, like, by title. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll hear them, and I'm like, oh, I know that one. But I don't know the names. So I can't tell you what songs. There's something on this album.
Yeah, that one jumps right off with In Between Days, which is definitely Cure pop. Probably I mean, what's before that? Yeah, I think this is the beginning of a change for them. And Close to Me and Push are on this album.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'm the same way. I don't know song titles for Cure very well, but I definitely recognize and know a lot of Cure songs. So yeah, this probably is like the transition period here. It's one of their highest rated too, outside of Disintegration and Pornography. It's tied with Faith, which is their third album. Yeah,
I mean, it's a good album. I think it's a really good album. I think I don't. I like The Cure a lot. I'm not like a crazy Cure person, like the way I am with The Fall. I like everything from the start to way, way, way far. I go with them, but I wasn't really into them like super heavily until I got a little older. I kind of felt like I was listening to this when it came out, and then I got like more into like punk, like punky punk, and I super abandoned everything like this for a long time. And I was like, oh, that's crappy. I don't like the Smiths and the Cure, the Depeche Mode. It's a record. I like punk, and we listen to the Subhumans, and but I eventually I was like, but I can like the Subhumans and the Cure, and that's okay.
Yeah, nobody says you have to give up one genre of punk.
at some point in that time period, yeah, people were saying that.
Yeah, that's true. I remember even being a teenager, there being a lot more tribalism across the different genres of punk, and that is one good thing. A good thing about the current era is that it seems like most people can just listen to whatever they want, and nobody seems to really care.
Yeah, it's definitely different now. It's better in that sense. And like when this came out, I was like almost graduating from high school, like my senior year of high school. Like there's a lot of like proving yourself. And I grew up in New York. I was in the city, and there was like super punky punk people, and I was like trying really hard to impress them. So like I said, I'm like, okay, I gotta find out what crass is like and all this stuff, and put away my adamant pin for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, well-crafted melodies. What's that about?
Right. But then eventually you realize that all those people too, like, felt the same way and liked all that stuff too. Everybody was just kind of like pretending they didn't. There's probably only like maybe I have like some very good friends that are super like stick to that, but they're really only a few. Most people are like open to all of these things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you just said, Dylan, well-crafted tunes, they appeal to everyone for the most part. I don't know anybody who's like, ugh, melody, turn that off.
My really good friends who may or may not listen to this know who I'm talking about.
She's calling you out.
Yeah, they know. They'll call me out. They'll tell me I'm lame for liking The Cure. It's okay.
Number 4 is the Jesus and Mary Chain, Psycho Candy. Dylan, you text me all the time about the Jesus and Mary Chain. So
do I really?
You do. They're one of the bands you talk about at me more often.
I feel like I'm such a beginner with the Jesus and Mary Chain too. Like they're just one of these bands that I really kind of like The Fall, like you were saying with The Fall, like I really want to get into them. And I've listened to this record. I mean, and I've listened to all of their big records, but I don't know that I've like really absorbed them fully. They're just a band I'm really, really interested in at the moment. And I don't know. I guess I talk about them a lot more than I thought.
I'm pretty sure you today texted me about.
That was mostly a joke, but
they are for me also another band that I didn't even really get into them at all ever when I was younger. I ignored them completely for some reason. I thought I wouldn't like them, and I never listened to them until I was much, much, much older. And then one day, this again, people listening to this who know me, This is how I am. Everybody loves Jesus and Mary Chain, and like 30 years later, I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me the Jesus and Mary Chain were really good? And they're like, what is wrong with you? We've been telling you that for 30 years. So that's what happened for me with them. I think they're great, and I think every single thing that they have released is really great. And even the most recent thing, and I only recently finally saw them like about 2 years ago, and they were great. And now I love them, but that one took me a really long time to get to.
You mentioned their recent stuff being great, and I wanted to say I was in. First of all, the rating for that last record is on Rate Your Music is surprisingly low but I was in a record store and I heard a song from that record, and I was like, "What is this? This is great! Like this is super catchy and really cool and like kind of noisy, but like." Poppy, and so I just like Shazammed it while I was standing there.
I do that too,
and I was like, oh wow, this is a new Jesus and Mary Chain record, and it sounds exactly like what I want them to sound like. So that I would say their recent stuff is what got me into them. So I think they've been really consistent, but maybe the nerds on the internet don't totally agree.
I think they're really good. I think if you even look, I can't see how if you like them, you wouldn't love also like the later stuff, like Monkey. That album is so great. Or Stoned and Dethroned. Like Monkey maybe is my favorite album of theirs. I know that's crazy to say because Psycho Candy and Automatic are everyone's favorites, but Monkey is really, really, really great.
I haven't gotten past Automatic yet in terms of my listening, but from what I've heard, that's my favorite. I mean,
it's so good.
Yeah, my main exposure to them is from the Crow soundtrack. So,
and what's on the Crow soundtrack?
It is. Let me pull it up. It is Snake Driver.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, I'm not sure which album that's off of, if it's even off of anything, because there are some original tracks on that.
Yeah, I think The Crow has mostly original stuff that's not on, like, from all the bands, mostly.
Yeah, there's like a Stone Temple Pilots song that's definitely from an album, and maybe one or two others. Maybe that Rage Against the Machine song, but I'm not sure. I guess moving along, I'm going to skip a few unless anyone objects and go to number 8, which is Rites of Spring's self-titled album.
All right.
We talked a little bit about actually probably more than a little bit about Rites of Spring on our episode with Adam about Rain, but this record is like, it's the only full-length album from them, and it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I love that.
You guys are finally like a little bit stumping me. This is a huge gap for me. I know, of course, who they are. I would never recognize a song of theirs if I heard it, and I probably have never listened to this whole album ever.
Do you enjoy Fugazi?
Ooh. Did they have more than that one song? I know that song, that popular one. Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna say it. I don't really care about them. I neither like nor dislike. I have really no feelings about Fugazi.
Yeah. This is a more aggressive sound for 85, because 85 is a strange year for like punk and hardcore. It's during the time period where a lot of the hardcore bands have broken up, or they've transitioned their sound into something much more metallic. And this was one of like the fresh, new, aggressive sounds of this time period in hardcore. So it definitely... Is this before the Embrace first album, Dylan?
I am not 100% sure.
I want to say it is. I want to say Embrace came out the year after.
Embrace is later.
So
like 7, maybe?
It's probably not the first emo-core record, but it's the one that made people want to be in emo-core bands and stuff like that. So if that's your thing, that's worth checking out.
I don't know that do I like anything that would be considered emo core? I don't know that I do. What are the top emo core bands in your opinion?
Well,
I mean, it's mostly Embrace and Rites of Spring.
Okay, and
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
even.
it's such a weird. It's a very specific time period, and only a handful of bands really are in it. So yeah, Embrace and Rites of Spring are like the two big ones, and then a ton of bands with just a bunch of EPs.
Well, and I mean, I guess some people would consider Grey Matter and Dag Nasty
Yeah,
in that same family.
Ignition.
It's a very
I love
DC.
Dag Nasty. Super love Dag Nasty. But
Yeah.
I don't know that I would
Yeah,
in that category.
this is a more aggressive sound. Like the Dag Nasty stuff has a little bit more of a not pop edge to it, but definitely a more of a upbeat take on it.
Yeah. Well, I would say Dag Nasty is maybe a little more focused, and Rites of Spring is a little more flailing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to. There's not a whole lot once we get too far down. But I did want to point out Flip Your Wig by Husker Du came out this year as well, which is crazy that New Day Rising and Flip Your Wig are the same year. Like, that's just, I mean, when you think about how many records Husker Du released and how short their career actually was, I mean, you go from 83 to 87 and they have, 6 records?
And
Plus, and, solid singles and EPs of material that wasn't released, on their full lengths.
this album has Make No Sense at All, which Bob actually finished his set last night playing that song. So, and it was like a sing along, like he got the audience to sing along too. So like that this is a huge record, and I feel like it's almost how different is it from New Day Rising for it to be the same year?
It's pretty different.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I think there's sort of a line. I think they have like probably a line. They have maybe 3 phases, kind of, I think. Like the really earliest stuff, and then the next period. And I think this starts the final chapter.
Yeah. I would say that Flip Your Wig it's probably one of the easiest starting points with Husker Du. Like, you could easily start here and then listen to Candy Apple Grey and Warehouse, and then maybe go back. And especially if you're not really into hardcore, Flip Your Wig is definitely the point where they're shifting towards alternative rock and being maybe more of a straightforward rock band. Yeah, this is definitely like the last act. And
Well, this was the major label record too, right?
no, they were still on SST.
Oh, it's Candy Apple Grey.
Candy Apple Grey was the Warner Brothers record.
Yeah, but this is probably the one that made them get the major label attention.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. This is the point where they crossed over. But
Yeah, there is a lot of good stuff on this first page. Like, I don't want to spend too long on these, primarily because we're also in a theme month, and the majority of this isn't fitting that theme. But I guess we'll just run some down real quick. Dead Milkmen, Big Illusion in My Backyard. It's a big record. They never quite did it for me personally, but The Cult, Love, Ted Kennedy's Frankenchrist, Descendants, I Don't Want to Grow Up, Naked Ray Gun, All Rise. Oh,
Have
yeah.
you ever? I can't remember if at all if Descendants came up in the last conversation. I think I continue to say inflammatory things, so I'm going to say it. I don't really like the Descendants.
Like, at all?
Like 2 songs,
Yeah.
Suburban Home, great song. That some other song is a good one too. I don't know, Sour Grapes or something. I don't know, but all the rest boring. Sorry. Sorry. No one's gonna listen anymore. I'm sorry. You're gonna get hate.
I'm gonna kill the rest of our listenership because the Descendants have less mileage for me.
No, it's Milo.
I'm saying Milo-age. It's a play on how they have the age songs in their discography. But yeah, they're harder and harder for me to revisit. and I get a little more bored each time. So
there's a lot that didn't age well with them. Like a lot that didn't age well with them. I do think
Bike Itch is a great song.
yeah. They're not a band I go back to that often, but they are one that I used to love very, very much. They kind of invented modern day pop punk as far as their brand. This record is, I really only ever listened to 2 Descendants records, and this is one of them. Primarily because of the song Silly Girl, and I Don't Want to Grow Up. Looking at the tracks, though, there's not a ton. Christmas Vacation's good, In Love This Way. Like the more melodic songs, the ones that are like just love songs essentially, are the ones I like the most. But then I really don't care about songs like Pervert or Rockstar or, yeah. This is probably half of a great record, which, is that unpopular? I don't know.
Well, we already started down the road, so yeah. I didn't really ever like them back in the day. I don't like them now. I don't understand the fanaticism around them. I mean, like so many people are crazy fanatics. Yeah, like I said, I think Suburban Home is an amazing song, and I could listen to that like just on repeat like 500 times in a row and will never get tired of it. It's just great. But I don't know, it just doesn't move me. I've seen them many times, so it's not even like I'm getting any kind of a disconnect. It's just like even live, like I want to like it. I do, but
we saw them at Fest a couple years ago, and we left in the middle. Did we leave to go see Beach Slang?
Yeah.
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I would do the same thing again.
Even now,
Hopefully.
Beach Slang?
Yeah, honestly.
Yep, I'm with you.
They took forever to set up. I mean, they just got to get the drums just right. It's like, come on, it's a punk festival. Just play. They took forever to start, and they were just... I think we left right as they started to bring out, like, the prop comedy.
Oh, yeah. They started doing, like, the all type songs, so it's just like, all right, we're good. I heard Marriage and Silly Girl. I'm good.
Yeah, I think it was their comeback. They came back at the right time, and that's maybe why they have such like an endearing place in punk, because they came back in '96 and pretty much capitalized on like this genre that they had invented, kind of starting to really blow up and into the mainstream. That would be my guess.
Yeah, it looks like they've come back like 3 times too, because there's '96, then in 2004, then it was like, I guess, nostalgia for people, and then 2016 they came back, and I guess that was now they're legendary, so we have to pay respects.
Cool to be you. That was like American was probably on like a Warped Tour comp or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They were very well timed.
They show up once every 10 years to remind everybody how they have some good songs.
And they've got that cool logo.
Logo.
I don't want to spend too much more time on the charts because we need to start talking about our records.
A lot to say.
So much to say. All right. So, for some reason, I didn't write what number this is, but on our charts of horror punk, death rock, psychobilly, and goth rock, we drew, I don't know what the number is, the Guana Batz and their album Held Down at Last.
Then you get one out. What are you gonna do? What's the creeping in doorways, hammering down the alleyways. Well, sinking getting deeper till you got some lonely day. Now things are fun when you got no money. You seem to be in the way.
Basics out of the way. They were formed in 1983 in Feltham, Middlesex, England. Released this in 85 on ID Records. This is their first album. ID Records released albums by the Anti-Nowhere League, the Meteors, Demented Argo, and a live Damned record. Speaking of the Damned, we forgot to mention Phantasmagoria came out in 1985 as well, which we covered last year, right before Halloween. The personnel on this record is Pip Hancock's on vocals, Stuart Osborne on guitars, Sam Sardi on the double bass, and Diddle Turner on drums. Diddle Turner. Produced by Kit Wolven, who produced albums by Thin Lizzy, Cradle of Filth, 999, Cathedral, and UFO. So, kind of all over the place. This is the second week in a row we're discussing a Psychobilly record. And what did everyone think of this record? And you can go first since you're the guest.
Okay. Well, so I was from you. I think you asked me when we were messaging. I was familiar, of course, with Guana Batz. And I actually have some of their stuff. I don't own this album, but I have their next album. And I have some compilations that they're on, like the Stomping at the Club Foot and Rockabilly Psychosis. So I remember really well. Sorry, this is a long intro to tell you what I thought.
No.
Yeah, but I remember seeing their records in the record stores when I was younger and being really intrigued by their logo and like, these guys look really like creepy and cool, and that logo is like like scary and like, and their records, like some of their records were really expensive. It was actually hard to get their stuff, so I think I ended up buying like the cheapest one, like I said, which was the next one. And like seeing the way they looked, everything just seemed like really horror and like psychobilly. Wow, that's like crazy, man. And then, like, when I got home and listened to that record, I was like, oh, okay, this is like rockabilly with a cool logo. So, listening to this album, I feel exactly the same way as I did. It's lovely rockabilly, and it's really good rockabilly. They do a fine job at their job of doing what they are supposed to do. I don't necessarily think if you just put this on in a room and never said anything about it, that anyone would say, wow, this is psychobilly, right? And maybe nothing that's called psychobilly would twig anybody's brain to that, because it's more about the image. But even like their image isn't really that like horror-y. It's that logo. That's it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is, I think they're a fine rockabilly band. I don't know really that much else to say.
A fine rockabilly band, but a poor psychobilly band.
I mean, I don't know, but who really is what is psychobilly in the end besides image? You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe the Meteors take it up a notch, but like, this is basically like Stray Cats, Elvis, Carl Perkins, Vincent. We're touching all the bases.
Yeah. And we listened to a Batmobile record for our Halloween special Spooktacular last year, and it was very similar. It was just like, this is mostly just Bill Haley, like full on just rock around the clock. Like, it doesn't do a whole lot to live up to the psycho, like, scary imagery, because Batmobile had the same like a bat logo, very similar. And it's like, it's fine. I don't listen to a lot of rockabilly for a reason, so this doesn't do a ton for me.
It is funny that you mentioned Batmobile, because they did release an EP in 1985 as well. And I believe when you put all the releases together, not just the albums, they're right next to each other.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they had the same problem of like, is this actually psychobilly? Because you're right, what is psychobilly? And it is image, but
I think
lyrics too play
maybe
a factor.
listening to the Cramps, you get an idea of how the music can be more unnerving and creepy sounding.
Like,
But
the Cramps
there's not
are
much else that does that.
I mean, I don't even think of the Cramps as psychobilly. And we talked about the Cramps last time, and you guys know I love the Cramps.
Mhm.
Top 3 bands for me. But I don't know what I really even consider them. I don't know that I categorize them so much. And you can hear Crampsy stuff in this album. The Guana Batz, lots of Cramps sounding stuff.
And that was my thinking. Like, to me, this record is the middle ground between the Stray Cats and the Cramps.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and almost leaning more towards the Stray Cats.
Yeah.
Overall. Like, even the way they dress on this album cover is very just, I don't know. That one guy's wearing a sweater on the album cover. And their flat tops aren't like extreme, like the Necromantics take it in the
Right.
they're just kind of real, like the one guy's is kind of poofy and the other guy's is more flat, but it's not even very severe. It's
just like
short.
a half an inch taller than like George Jones's flat top in the early 60s, you know. Yeah.
Walking that street in the middle of the night, my body keeps shaking and I don't feel right. Oh, I can't feel the pressure. Can't take pressure. Backing up tonight. Well, I gotta keep it running just to get along with you. Gotta keep it running, that's all I ever do. Well, I can't take the pressure. Can't take the pressure. So put me through. Well, said I can't take the pressure. I'm gonna crack it up. I can't love you, baby. I'm running out of love. Gonna pack my bags and say farewell. I'll forget about you. You ain't got nothing to sell. No.
Yeah, I don't know what particularly makes them psychobilly. And then, yeah, I've said before that, and I even said this last week, unless you're like fully immersed in the psychobilly scene, your average person only needs 1 or 2 psychobilly bands. And for me, it's the Cramps and Reverend Horton Heat, and I'm good.
If you want to count the Gun Club, but even then, kind of similar to the Cramps, it's like, is it really psychobilly?
Yeah, no, I personally would never even think of them like that. I don't know what I think of them as, but I like them a lot. But yeah, psychobilly, like to me, I've always thought that it has to have like a frenetic quality, and I don't feel like Cramps or Gun Club are frenetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely. I mean, the psycho comes from psychedelic, right?
Or just that it was some like next level beyond just rockabilly.
Yeah.
Let's see. It says the term psychobilly was first used in the lyrics to the country song "One Piece at a Time,"
Right.
written for Johnny Cash
Yeah.
in 1976. So I don't.
Yeah, he
know if it's
describes
a-
it as a psychobilly Cadillac or something like.
Yeah. That's what it says, yep.
Hmm.
So maybe I've been misinterpreting what psychobilly is supposed to mean, like my whole life.
I
So-
think everyone has though.
Right.
I think
But it
everyone.
sounds like it should mean something else. But it's really just like rockabilly, that dresses differently.
Yeah. It's rockabilly for punks is essentially
Yeah.
what it's
Yeah.
supposed to be. But yeah, it does like conjure different things. Because yeah, you're right. It doesn't have to. If you just say rockabilly for punks, it doesn't have to have spooky imagery or lyrics. It's just
They all seem to do that.
And I think the Meteors were probably the first band that I recognized were being tagged with that name, psychobilly.
Yeah, are the Cramps retroactively referred to as the first real psychobilly band?
I think they might be called like a parent
Yeah.
But I don't know that anybody is calling them that.
Like,
I mean, if they are, I'm surprised.
proto
Yeah.
psychobilly.
Like the proto punk.
Yeah, the Stooges to the yeah.
Right. The MC5 Stooges.
Yeah. I'm curious what. So, man, people called us out for just reading Wikipedia articles on the show before, but this says first wave occurs in Britain. So the Cramps are considered a pioneering group, but the Meteors are essentially called the first church. Yeah, which makes sense because that's where all the first big bunch of psychobilly bands came from. You know, like the Meteors, Demented Are Go, the Blasters. Aren't they another one?
No.
Or are they a U.S. band?
They're U.S.
They are actually the number one on. Oh, that's right, because I add just rockabilly. when I was looking at psychobilly, I was like, what borderline records would fit? And the Blasters are listed as number one. Chris Isaac also is on here, so that's twice he's shown up on this.
Okay. Not called the Blasters psychobilly.
Yeah.
No. They're I don't even know. Rock.
This
and
is
a Billy.
Yeah.
So compared to last week's album, which was the Necromantics 2011 album, What Happens in Hell Stays in Hell, this is a much better record.
I definitely think earlier is better with psychobilly in general. Most of those first wave bands.
Yeah, there was not a song on here where I was like, oh, this song is bad. But there was also no time when I was like, this is so great.
The only times I thought that were when they were reminding me of someone else.
Yeah.
You mean like the last half of the record?
Yeah, I was like, is that Tallahassee Lassie they're doing? And I was like, no, that sounds a lot like it. And then I guess the King Rat was very Crampsy.
Yeah. that almost was like, that's Rock Lobster's intro almost. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of Cramps in there, a lot of Stray Cats in there. There's the very beginning of the album starts off like, what's that Queen song that sounds like, oh, you know what I'm talking about? It starts with like an acoustic little.
Oh, yeah, it's Crazy Little Thing Called Love.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that was their foray into rockabilly. I have to say, when I was the age that I was when it came out, I loved that song. It's so embarrassing. It's so terrible, really. But I loved it, and I don't like Queen at all, but that was my jam.
When I started this record and it started playing, the first song is called Down the Line, and I was like, this tune is familiar. And I was like, Down the Line, and I just started kind of like Googling that song title. I was like, is this a Roy Orbison song? It's not. It's kind of borrows the name, but
that one is similar to a lot of things because it also reminded me of a song by Skid and Mojo. You know, like Skid Roper and Mojo Nixon. You guys know them?
Yeah,
I think there was like the washboard was going, and Skid and Mojo are like major washboarders. So I think that was the connection.
Yeah, are there any covers on this record?
There are 3 covers actually.
Oh, okay. I didn't look too hard at like who was writing what songs. Which ones are the covers?
So You're My Baby is a Johnny Cash song.
Nice.
Please Give Me Something, which you can, I guess the subtitle would be To Remember You By. That's a Bill Allen and the Backbeats song, so that's an old rockabilly song. And then Bust Out was an old surf song, I believe. It was, I think, originally by the Busters, actually.
The Busters Bust Out,
So,
which was definitely the name of their pictured sleeve for the
it
7
looks
inch.
like the Cherry Poppin' Daddies also covered that song at one point. So
Gross.
I was thinking about the Makers, who have a song called Bust Out, which is really great. I don't know if you guys know the Makers.
No, I'm not familiar with them.
All right, check them out.
Trash can, I sit down. Now makes all the rules and they call me the king round. Well, if that's a day now, I rule the streets tonight. Well, it's all my name now, and they call me the king round. Well, everywhere I go, I hear the Fiendish robbers say, hey man, there's a king round. Oh, good God.
This album is lacking any sort of punch. It's the softest sounding psychobilly I think I've ever heard. It was so soft. I was like, this is just like poor Stray Cats. Like, not done as well. There's some okay guitar solos. Down the Line has a good solo on it.
yeah, but I think in terms of
Got no
lead
money.
guitar
Actually.
playing, again, there's more essential. Stray Cats, obviously, but even Batmobile, I felt like had
Yeah, that's true.
better guitar solos. But I thought of their original songs on this record, I want to say Nightmare Fantasy was probably their strongest, and which I noticed that's actually the only song written by Sam Sardi, the bass player. So I'm curious if he gets more credits later on, if he contributes more songs to any of their later records, or if this is kind of just a fluke.
I did a bad job as far as researching their other music. Usually I try and get an idea of what the other albums sound like, but for some reason this band, I was like, oh, they're all going to sound the same.
They really do. Honestly, they really do. So there's not. It's like fine, like good background music.
Yeah.
Mm.
I wouldn't tell anyone to turn it off.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't be like, oh, what is this? But it all kind of blobs together after a while.
It's so looking at Rate Your Music, it is the most popular album they've released. It's not the highest rated though. That would be their 1990 album, Electra Glide in Blue, but it's maybe half as popular. So listening wise, so you have to take that as you will. Just because 13 people liked it more than they liked the first one doesn't necessarily mean that album is better. It's got a 3.12 out of 32 ratings. Yeah, for reference, their lowest album is 2.90, which came out in 88, so it's not even that much later. Well, maybe there's some compilations later that have some lower scores, but those don't quite count. Yeah, I just don't know who this is for other than people who are just really into the scene.
I mean, they had a scene,
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Definitely understand. And like I said, that logo, when I have very clear memories of like coveting the records, looking at them because of the logo.
And it's funny because like I look at the actual covers of all of them, all of the albums, and it's just kind of them standing.
Yeah, but the logo is cool.
Yeah, the logo is better than the band.
It's better than everything. Yeah. Yeah, and even the one album that I ended up buying back in the day didn't even have the cool logo on the cover. So I should
Did
have known.
Did you get Loan Sharks?
Actually, no, I thought it was the second one. It's the third one, Rough Edges.
Yeah.
I was just like, I gotta get something. I wanted to get something, and like I said, they were like, I guess it was like imports or whatever, so it was like expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I just need to buy something by this band.
Did you ever do that thing where you were like, well, it was expensive and I bought it. I'm gonna have to try and make myself enjoy it? Or were you
No.
just immediately like, no thanks?
No, but also I have never been an expensive record buyer. I mean, certainly not at that time. So, this is like the late 80s. I mean, I was in college. I didn't have any money. So, no, I just looked at those expensive records and just walked on by.
Yeah, the cover to that one looks like demos or something.
Yeah, I was really disappointed. I have to admit that for sure. And I probably never ever listen to it again.
Well, unless anyone else has anything they want to say about this record, we could give it a rating if we'd like.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. I see here I wrote a 3.75, and I don't think that's remotely what I feel. I must have been in a great mood when I was listening to this album originally. I'm gonna give it a 2.75.
That's exactly what I'm giving it.
Yeah, it's not aggressively. It's not bad, but it's not standout in any way. It's just kind of there. It's competent. It's well made.
It's perfectly serviceable.
Yeah. Whenever I listened to this as I left work, so that definitely probably made it sound better. Because I had been hearing a lot of pop country this morning. I went to their Spotify page when I got in the car, and I saw that their number one song on Spotify was "I'm on Fire," and I was like, "Is this?" And it was a Springsteen cover. I didn't finish it. I moved on to the album, but yeah. And then I went and had lunch. I had pizza, and then I got my comic books, and I drove home, and I went and sat down and rated this like a 3.5 on Rate Your Music. And in the midst of talking about this album, I just dropped it down to 3.0.
So, what magic spell do they cast to make us think we're enjoying this record more than we are?
I don't know. It's okay. And it's intrinsically fun music, I guess. Maybe that's part of it. Like, it doesn't sound like they're joylessly slogging through these songs. Like, they sound like they're having fun playing them. And that's maybe a little bit infectious. I don't know. But I'm going to sit at 3. It didn't offend me. It wasn't poorly played. But it didn't really entertain me either. It was kind of a neutral experience all around.
I think we all agree with that.
Well, all right. Let's move on to something that I don't think is going to be a neutral experience for everyone. Our EP for this episode is White Zombie, and it is called Gods on Voodoo Moon. White Zombie formed in 1985, and this was released the very same year. This is their debut EP. It was self-released on a 7-inch and later reissued on cassette, and then in 2017 reissued by Numero Group as a 7-inch. The personnel on this record is Rob Straker, whereas he would later go by Rob Zombie, which that's not even his real name. His last name's like Cummings or something like that. So his pseudonym wasn't even that good originally. He does vocals. We have Aina Kastabi on guitars, Peter Landau on drums, and Sean Yasalt on bass. And this is not what I expected at all. So, White Zombie became famous for their 90s records. I'm trying to think of the name of the first one. Las Exorcisto Volume 1 or something like that. And
Astro Creep.
Yeah, Astro Creep.
Those are the two big ones.
And then they have that remix album, and then he goes off and does Rob Zombie solo. So this sounds nothing like that.
Not at all.
At all.
I have so many notes. I don't even know how to control my conversation because of the millions and millions of notes I've written about just for song.
Well, did you like it?
I fucking loved it.
What?
Really?
Yeah. I was like, what am I listening to? How is this related to anything that I know about White Zombie? And like I said, so many notes. So I'll try to tie it all down to a small amount of words. But I thought it was awesome. I loved it, and I lots more to say, but that's the first thing I'll say.
Okay. Dylan, did you like this record?
No.
Our first real difference, polarizing.
Yeah.
And I did not like this at all either.
Wow, this is so awesome.
So make your case.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. Well, okay, first of all, so I saw White Zombie once.
Yeah.
So that's a good place to begin. So I've mentioned many times that I grew up in New York, and so I was in this world that this comes from. And I was a high school senior at this time. So a lot, so much going on in my life. But White Zombie hadn't entered into my consciousness at this moment. But I guess I saw their name a lot. They played a lot. They were on every bill. Their name was always listed at every club in New York all the time. But maybe this early, maybe I wasn't really paying attention.
I want to jump in here real quick. This EP, they only pressed 300 copies and only sold 100. So
yeah, that's really funny.
You probably wouldn't have come across it unless you saw
I
them live.
definitely did not hear of this at the time. I didn't hear any of their first probably two things ever until this week. And but by the time I was aware of them and paying attention to their name, in my mind they were a rock band or some kind of metal band. They were not anything to do with what I liked, but I knew that they were a part of my world and my scene. They played all the time with bands that I like, but anyway, so I did see them. It was 1989. I looked back at my notes and tickets and anything. My friend's band was opening up, and that has to be why I went, because I never would have gone to see them just to see them. And it was apparently, I didn't remember this, release party for Make Them Die Slowly. That
Which
record
is
there.
the second album?
Yeah. Soul Crusher, I guess, is the first album. And
yeah.
So 89 is sort of a really pivotal moment for them. And I think this is when they started moving into a totally, totally different direction. But my very little memories of the show are this. So much dry ice that I was choking to death. I couldn't see anything. And I said, I remember saying, like, what are we at? Like Madison Square Garden? But we were at CBGB. We weren't at Madison Square Garden. I was like, no, bands don't do this here. That's not what this place is. Dry eyes. What the heck? And then the lights, those spinning lights that bands put on the edges of the stage. What is that
Yeah.
like? I know this is really foreign to me. So those lights are going, spinning around, and the like sound, and the smoke, and I'm like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing here? And it was so crowded that like they were now like just popping.
Do you remember who the other bands were?
Well, my friend's band is Ed Gein's Car, which I know is probably pronounced Ed Gein, but we all said Ed Gein, so that's how I'm saying it.
Yeah.
So Ed Gein's Car is my friend Scott. He's awesome. Hi, Scott, if you ever listen to this. So yeah, they were one of the openers, and I love them. I saw them many, many times. Great, underrated New York band of the time. I don't remember the other bands, but I remember it was like I said, that record release show, whenever that was in '89. And my friends' band are always great. And then I was like bored, I know, for a while. And then they came on and did their goofy stuff that I thought was inappropriate for the club. And I was out of there super fast. Like I don't know that I lasted even like 5 songs. And
Wow.
I was like, no, oh, no. And I think maybe there is a little bit of video from this show on YouTube. I was trying to find, there's some stuff from '89. It doesn't say where it's from. It's impossible to tell where they are because of the smoke. So, yeah. So this is my experience with White Zombie. Leaving them after 5 songs in '89, and then thinking that they sucked always, and then they got huge, and like I'm so embarrassed. Shamefully, I kind of like More Human Than Human. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about it, because I know it's probably garbage, but I actually like that song. Whatever.
Well, don't feel bad, because doing this episode, I was like, I have to hear later White Zombie to see if there's any of this early stuff there, and there's very little to me.
There's like nothing. There's like it's like not even the same band. And then finally, I know I'm talking so much, but finally, then also I was angry at them and hated them because they toured with the Ramones, and the Ramones opened for them, and I was like, no, Ramones do not open for White Zombie, and I refused to go to the show. I should have gone just to see Ramones because I love them so much, but I didn't go. I boycotted because that was just lame. So that's my history with White Zombie. So I listened to this, and I had a very open mind, because I think the first 2 songs I wrote down great and great. And then the second 2 I wrote good and good, and then many, many notes. But small things I said, there's a lot of flipper going on sounding in here. I thought there was a little bit of germs. I'm hearing a lot of it's derivative. I don't care. I don't mind that. Butthole Surfers, Sonic Youth, Misfits, Red Cross, Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, Pussy Galore. All of those bands I like. So I'm okay with it being derivative of all those bands that I like.
Yeah, I mean, White Zombie is definitely derivative. Like, in all of their incarnations, even like the later 90s stuff, it's like a lot of Ministry and Killing Joke, and then there's like thrash and groove, and they kind of just like a hodgepodge of like all these different sounds mushed together.
They're kind of a noisy sponge. They just kind of draw on everything in like a wide spectrum of like noisy bands. I'm looking at these. I'm looking at. I was trying to see if I could find maybe a show listing, but I'm looking at these at Gaines' car and like some different White Zombie posters, and it is. You're right. Like they played with everyone. It's
they
like
played it. They played on every field. Yeah, with them they played with like and all bands that you would kind of call like scuzz rock. I mean, like we had like a sort of a scum rock scene in New York. They weren't really part of that, but yeah, like a scuzz, Honeymoon Killers, and like these. They were like not punk, but they were part of the punk scene, and they were like more rock.
Did you ever
White Zombie with Prong and the Obsessed?
Yeah, I mean they toured with
in
Prong.
Tampa.
They did like a long tour with Prong.
Did they ever do anything with Unsane? Another New York?
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, they had to have played with Unsane for sure.
Because they were another CBGB band. Which to me, it's so weird that White Zombie was a CBGB band.
Well, I don't even know how to explain the time, and like what was going on then. I think people have an idea of what CBGB is, and I think that's wrong. They were probably wrong.
I mean, it was just a venue.
It was a venue, right? And I mean, of course, we had our Ramones and all those other bands, but I mean, every night was different.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. That's like you don't call bands Fillmore bands or anything.
Yeah, everybody associates it. But look, Living Colour were a CBGB band. Blues Traveler, whatever that other band. What's that other band? That other band that's like Blues Traveler? I can't think. They had that Two Princes, whatever the hell that song
Spin
is.
Doctors.
Spin Doctors were a CBGB band.
Yeah.
They played, if you go back and look at like tons and tons of listings every week in the Village Voice, you'll see Spin Doctors playing there all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was just it was a venue for up and coming like bands on the verge of breaking through and including breakthrough bands.
Yeah, but like White Zombie would play like all the clubs in like every week. They were playing at the Limelight and they were playing at the Cat Club, Pyramid, everywhere.
What made them? Was it the theatrics that attracted everyone to them?
I don't know because I didn't like them. Remember, I thought they were terrible. So,
I guess for all these venues to constantly book them, it would have to be something that they.
I think it was like an upsurge. Not when this came out at all. Let's talk about like say 87, 88, 89. I think there was an upsurge of glammy and more rock. That was sort of like the Scrap Bar was like a super hot place to go and hang out. When did Guns N' Roses happen? That's out of my zone.
7. Is
it that late or that early? I don't know my Guns N' Roses history. They are literally one of my most hated bands.
I despise them. But that was happening around like the country, sort of like.
Yeah, you're right. 87, Dylan.
Yeah, I hate them so much.
Ugh, I cannot stand them. So, it's so funny that you liked this, even though your history of them is they suck.
But I'm willing to be okay with something that's different. It's so different. And first of all, his voice, of course. I think that's for me where the tipping point goes the other direction. I love punk and I love crappy stuff, and I love. I always say I like treble. I like squeal. I think I like heavy less. I like bass less. So I would say that's why I probably like this.
Yeah, his voice was shocking to me. Almost. It was just so different. It's like 3 octaves higher than what he would do later.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it was even. I mean, I would almost not believe it was him, but he definitely has his mannerisms. I don't know if it's like how he pronounces a word or like the way he like cuts words off. He has a unique way of saying and singing his lines. This whole thing just I don't know. I didn't like the guitars. I didn't like the melodies. I didn't like anything about it. There's so little of it that I enjoyed.
I think going back to the fall, I wrote down for Tales from the Scarecrow Man, I wrote down underline 10 times Flipper and the Fall.
I saw a lot of noise rock comparisons and people calling them a noise rock band, and to me, I don't hear it. I hear glammy southern rock almost. Like
I didn't hear that at all.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't hear the closest thing I hear is maybe some TSOL from this time period, maybe a little bit of 45 Grave, but I don't know. I don't hear the noise aspect of it. I hear that it's noisy, but like I don't think of this as noise, but I don't know, maybe I'm not as tapped into noise rock as other people are, but
I think it definitely feels like it's contemporaries in New York at the time for me, and then combined though with a bit of the California scene. And like, did you listen to the next EP, The Pig Heaven, at all?
no, I listened to a little bit of, like, I just sampled like one or two tracks on the 2 full lengths. And then I got onto the 90s records, and I was like, hey, I liked these songs.
And then, like, for me, I wrote down on all my notes, like, the next one I wrote, I still like the voice. This is so funny. This is such a difference. I still like the voice, but the boogie is starting.
It does
But I wrote Butthole Surfers meets Black Flag. So I wrote, but the boogie is starting. Then Soul Crusher, I wrote Danzig style vocals, heavier. And then for Make Them Die Slowly, I underlined vocals, and I wrote mostly blech. and I said you couldn't hear the bass at all. And so that's the album that I saw for the record release party. So obviously that makes sense. Not liking that I wouldn't. And then everything else after, like God of Thunder, I was like, oh, this is horrendous. And then Sixer Sister, the other things. It's hard to even talk about that. And one last little note I wrote. I just think it's really funny how different we are on this. He has like this little, he had a record label later, and he released this Halloween album, which is really good. Let me just say that if you don't know that one.
Is it, what was his label called?
Halloween Hootenanny. His song is Halloween, She's So Mean. And he does it. It's him with the ghastly ones. And it's really great.
Maybe it's because I grew up listening to the radio in the 90s. So, like, they would play, Thunder Kiss 65. And then, like, I remember having, like, a VHS that had the Black Sunshine video on it, which has, like, Iggy Pop doing like narration over it. And then More Human Than Human. And is there another single on that record too?
Supercharged.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, Supercharger Heaven. Yeah.
I wrote down, I listened to everything. Like, I listened to their whole entire discography.
Wow.
I do not remember the Black Sunshine song at all. It did not strike any familiarity to me. Thunder Kiss, I vaguely remember, but More Human Than Human, I remember liking it when it was out and feeling sad about that, and liking it again now. And I like the Supercharged one also. Listening to it today, I don't recall it from back then, but hearing it again now, I was like, oh, that's all right.
I think the song has the big slide guitar riff.
More Human. That was going to say. I think it's that bluesy slide guitar that kind of makes that song work. Because the rest of it's just him going, more human than human. Like, it's like a long song, too. I want to say it's like a 4-minute song almost. It's 4 minutes and 28 seconds. Why was that a single? Good Lord. One thing I really disliked about this record, but it was one of the most common threads through all their stuff, is the guitars. It has this weird, almost like funky wah effect on it, and it really drove me crazy. And you called it the boogie, and that's definitely what they do later. So they expanded on that.
It's so funny, and I thought that Cat's Eye. I was like, oh wait, Cat's Eye Resurrection sounds a lot like Rat's Eyes by Black Flag. I was like,
Oh, that's like one of my least favorite Black Flag songs too.
And yeah, I had one other little bit of note sidebar, but Ina, who you mentioned,
Mhm.
Paul Kostabi is a New York scene guy. And he went by many, many names, and was in lots of different bands, and is an artist. His brother is an artist, Mark Kostabi. One of them painted the cover for the Use Your Illusion album, Back to Guns N' Roses. I don't know why I'm mentioning them twice, but I despise them. But one of those Kostabis is the artist that did that, and there's like a few. If you've ever seen like the Funky Man, Dee Dee Ramone's Goofy Rap record, that art is one of these Kostabis. I think it's Ina, and he did like art maybe for Tom Tom Club. It's definitely one of these guys. But he was in a band called Youth Gone Mad. Do you guys know them?
Oh, okay. So, this the Funky Man cover. Yeah, yeah, definitely the same artist as Tom Tom Club. Yeah, it's a cool cover.
So he's this is the only record of White Zombies that he's on, and I had no idea that he played with them, because I know him mostly for his art and just being a scenester and related to Ramones, in some ways, and also from Youth Gone Mad, who have a song called Okie Dogs, which is one of my favorite songs. So listen to that and then see if we may continue to walk down a different path when you hear that, and you'll be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I definitely know the name Youth Gone Mad, and I can't think of why. Is there anyone in that band that played in other big bands, or is it? Maybe it's the Dee Dee Ramone connection.
Yeah, it was super connected to.
Because he did an album with them, Youth Gone Mad featuring Dee Dee Ramone.
Yeah, I think actually I read when I was studying a little bit of stuff that maybe somebody who's in like a band now that has nothing to do with this kind of music was in the band, like the Cults.
I don't know.
But I mean, that's way far different kind of sound, but.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, listen to Okie Dogs and let me know what you think.
Yeah, I'll look into that. And I'm gonna look up some Ed Gein's Car too.
Oh, yeah, they're very interesting. They should have been like a thing. I don't know why they weren't.
Maybe it's their time. They're looks like 82 to 87 is what Discogs has them as.
That's completely wrong. They were playing longer than 87. That's way wrong.
I'm wondering if that's because there's releases on here from 88 and 89. So whoever typed the bio for this doesn't know what they're talking about. But that's what you get when everything is user based on this type of site. Dylan, did you have any real thoughts on this record?
Not really.
Sorry, I basically dominated this whole one.
No, I was happy to listen. Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where Justin and I are on the same page. We don't always, not always, but this is definitely one where there's just something, I don't know, I think in our brain chemistry. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's also just an expectation too of being so much more familiar with the later White Zombie and Rob Zombie. Like, this was so different that it was almost disappointing in that I didn't know what to expect.
The opposite. It was so different that I was like, wow.
I definitely wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna love this, but I felt like I had more of a reasonable expectation of what it would sound like, and then it didn't. And that was almost more upsetting.
I thought I was going to get some ironic enjoyment out of because I think that's what I get from the 90s White Zombie stuff is ironic enjoyment. I'm like, this is terrible, but I have fun listening to it. And I didn't have fun listening to this either. So,
Aw. Now, do you guys know Flipper at all?
We got yelled at very early on for our opinion on Flipper.
I promise I will never yell at you.
We reviewed, what was it, the second Flipper album? Gone Fishing.
Yeah.
And we hated it. And then we got a bunch of negative reviews saying we didn't understand and so So Flipper's a sore subject for us a little bit.
Well, this definitely falls squarely into Flipper territory, in my opinion. And also, like, there was a compilation album called Speed Trials, and The Fall, Sonic Youth are on it. I felt like these songs could have fit very well on that album.
Was Sonic Youth doing stuff in 87 or 85 yet?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I guess that makes sense. I could see this being closer to Sonic Youth than...
Yeah, real early.
Yeah, they started in like the 81.
Yeah, they have like a crazy long history.
Their self-titled album came out in 82, so...
And they were part of the same scene.
Yeah. And they were even early enough to maybe be considered no wave.
Yeah, or at least like noise.
Yeah.
Rock or whatever.
Where is my Kim Gordon Rob Zombie collab album? Because that would be impressive.
That would be very strange.
Yeah. Well, unless anyone has anything else they want to talk about on this record, we could give it a rating.
All right, guys, you go first because my rating's going to be way different.
I'm giving it a 1.75.
Oh wow.
So we have kind of like a standard where anything that we feel like, even if we don't like it or think it's creative or original, we say at least at a 2.0 shows that it's a competent band who can, I don't know, play their instruments well. And to me, this is not good enough to meet that criteria.
Wow.
To me, it was working against itself. And I fully believe I'm probably in the minority. This EP has a 3.07 on Rate Your Music, which is actually higher than the two full lengths that came out after, which have 2.82 and 2.75s. So people like this one more than those albums. It just did not work for me.
I think I gave it a 2.0. Which I feel more like they play their instruments fine, but I just don't know that I got what they were going for. Because I feel like once you start to get a little bit higher, where it's like I might not enjoy it, but I get where they're going, what they're trying to do. I didn't quite get it. I didn't catch it. And maybe I would have benefited from being a little more familiar with the scene and what else was going on in that time period, but it was just kind of a miss for me.
Are you surprised that I liked it, you guys?
Yes, I am. Because when we gave you the list originally, you chose this one, and I asked if it was because of White Zombie, and you said no, because of the Guana Batz. So I was surprised to see you actually liked this one.
You liked the EP more than the
Right?
album. That was the reason you picked
I have
it.
30 pages more notes for this EP than I did for the album. The album was like, yeah, it was fine. I loved it so much. I'm giving it a 4.
Wow.
Especially the first two songs. It is in my wheelhouse, as they say.
Is this the biggest disparity we've had between ratings?
Like for you guys on any of your talkings?
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of any guests that we've had, and I'm wondering, is this the widest gap in the opinion?
I think we maybe appreciated more about maybe like 45 Grave than our guests did there. But I do think our ratings were probably a little closer. This is a wider gap.
I think it's really funny, and I like it. I think it's good for our listeners to know that we're not just like, pandering to each other.
and for what it's worth, a regular guest of ours, Corey, which I think he's probably mentioned this on the show, but he also felt like we were too hard on Flipper. So there's some disagreement. recurring guests. And yeah, well, I think I liked that Flipper record still more than Justin did, but
Yeah, I did not. There's something about that particular brand of like noise punk or like art punk that it just drives me crazy, especially when they incorporate a saxophone and they're like, "We're not going to play it the way you're supposed to." And
I love that.
like, I love X-Ray Specs, and they're not the best sax player. You know, they don't have the best sax players ever, but they're playing it the way they're trying to play it well. So I don't know. Maybe I've seen way too many live art music, shows where it's just literally a noise, like someone just playing static, and then a guy walking around the room with a saxophone just honking at everybody. For me to ever remotely enjoy anything like that, but. Oh, well, next week, the good times keep on rolling because we are talking about the Misfits Project 1950.
No!
The Jerry-only fronted 50s cover album.
we are stuck in the 50s.
Ooh, I'm glad I'm not on that one.
We've done 2 psychobillies in a row. Now we're doing Misfits 50s covers.
And it's not even Michael Graves Misfits, it's Jerry only for Misfits. So our EP for that episode is Secret Shame, and their self-titled EP, Secret Shame. This is probably the most modern band we've discussed. I guess Necromantics, that album came out in 2011, but they started in the 80s too. So Secret Shame, I believe, are from the mid-2000s. So we'll see where that leads us. And thank you so much for doing the show again.
Thank you. I loved it.
Please tell people where we can buy your merchandise.
TheMachineShopRocks.com.
And on Twitter, you are not the music venue that Kid Rock was promoting.
Have we spoken since then?
It happened like the week after your episode went up.
Yeah, it keeps happening. Like it's happened like 4 or 5 times now. But yeah, there's a club called the Machine Shop, I guess, in Detroit, rock club, and they have a different Twitter name than the Machine Shop, which I have, and I get tagged now a lot in posts by Kid Rock, who is a disgusting human.
And I want to say it was like the same day that he had said some dumb bullshit.
He said some really inflammatory things about somebody like Taylor Swift. And so I got like swirled into a lot of replies.
Oh no.
So whatever, it's no big deal in the end. But I was like, no. And I even put like a thing on the front of my Twitter, like, this is not the rock club and I hate Kid Rock. And
I saw someone had like commented on that thread. They were like, known, racist asshole, or Kid Rock accidentally tags web store owned by queer.
Yeah, they put like queer, whatever, and it's like my web store itself isn't like inherently like queer, as far as like I'm not selling like rainbow stuff, but like me as a gay person, queer. And that's that's pretty much. It is pretty funny, actually.
It's just ironic.
Accidentally tagged me in that. So
So continue to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're at PunkLottoPod. Our website is punklotopod.simplecast.fm, and our email address is punklotopod@gmail.com. I'm supposed to mail some buttons to people. It's been about 3 or 4 weeks since they asked for them, but they're coming, I promise.
We have buttons.
We do. And if you want one,
2 months to get them.
Yeah. But I will send them, I promise. So, so that'll do it for this week, and we'll continue our Halloween Spooktacular next week.
Yay.
Homer, there's a man here who thinks he can help you.
Batman?
No, he's a scientist.
Batman's a scientist.
It's not Batman.